Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, jazakumullah khair. So, for this session, you'll remember from the previous session that I ended with the paragraph concerning legal responsibility upon whether the prayer is upon a Muslim or not, and so on. And there was a section I said that I wanted to take it as a whole. That statement was, and it has to be made up by anyone losing consciousness from sleep, fainting, and intoxication, etc. So those sections are still to do. However, alhamdulillah, for this session, for this week, we have been joined, and it's a great honor for us, and it's a rare thing as well, to be joined by our teacher and our Shaykh, the senior scholar of Al-Maghrib Institute, Sh.Waleed Basyouni, hafidhahullah ta'ala wa ra'ah. And as I mentioned to you in last lesson, or maybe I didn't mention actually, I didn't, sorry, that wasn't recorded. What I should tell you now is that there is something on this first page, a matter which is not an easy matter, and actually it's only got a few lines there, right? But its depth is significant. It's a very important issue in our tradition, classically. From a theology point of view, it's something very famous, and that is the issue concerning whether the one who denies the prayer or doesn't pray out of laziness, are they a non-Muslim or not? It's a very serious issue. The text that this refers to, and that is what we're going to be doing today, and so let me make it clear that we are actually jumping 4 English paragraphs, okay? The 4 English paragraphs, i.e. the one which is about losing consciousness, about whether it's valid from someone who's insane or non-Muslim, what are we to do if they pray, the issue about the children and how we discipline them and so on and so forth, and what happens if they reach adolescence, and the issue about delaying the prayer, whether that's permissible or not. These 4 paragraphs we're going to cover next week, all right? To take advantage of the presence of Sh.Waleed, because this last paragraph, and it is وَمَنْ جَحَدَ وُجُوبَهَا كَفَرْ وَكَذَا تَارُكَهَا تَهَاوُنًا وَدَعَاهُ إِمَامٌ أَوْ نَائِبُهُ فَأَصَرَّ وَضَاقَ وَقْتُ الثَّانِي عَنْهَا وَلَا يُقْتَلُ حَتَّى يُسْتَتَابُ ثَلَاثًا فِيهِمَا. So this text is, whoever denies the obligation of the prayer or doesn't pray out of laziness has committed disbelief. The Imam or his substitute should call him back to the prayer. But if he persists and the second of the 2 consecutive prayer times is running out, both perpetrators, both meaning the one who denies and the one who doesn't pray, both are still not to be killed until their repentance is sought 3 times. Okay? Now let me make a few things clear. Not only is this difficult in translation, it's also difficult in the Arabic. It's not very clear even in the Arabic wording, and that translation is the best that we can offer. But actually even the content behind it is not easy, and that's why we have a top scholar to deal with it, not a second bit one that we found at the Sunday market. Yeah? So that's the first thing I want to say. Secondly, I want to say to you that again, we are studying law. It's very important, and I don't just say this for the sake of it, okay? But we are living, of course, in a secular democracy, Britain to be specific, and this class is obviously broadcast to Muslim countries and non-Muslim countries. And this is not, of course, our actions or what we consider something that we would do or follow or whatever. This is studying a legal matter and understanding the reasoning of those that wrote this text and where they take their evidences from. Not at any moment would we consider that we would kill anyone if they don't pray. And it's not a very clever thing anyway, because there'd be no one left, all right? And starting at home would be in big trouble anyway. So there are many issues why we don't act upon this. We are talking about trying to understand why is it even correct, actually, this whole thing about killing and all this kind of emotional talk. And so without further ado, I want to invite Sh.Waleed to bring some light to this. Wa jazakallah khair.
Can I have the English one too, so I can look at the translation? Okay.
طبعا هذا من ترجمتي
بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه وبعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. You know, it's very interesting that I'm here today talking to you because I have many reasons not to do so. And among them, one, that I should be with you, like the few minutes that you came earlier, benefiting from Shaykh Abu Isa as well. And I said that in the past, and I'm still, every week it goes by, I'm more convinced that this is one of the most beneficial fiqh series available for English-speaking community or Muslims. And it contains a lot of ilm, a lot of solid ilm, a lot of original khilaf, as we say, looking at the matters from the perspective of its evidence, then also looking at the opinions of the companions, the successors, the fuqaha, the ulama from the past and modern days. Not only that, but put all this in context, all of this into modern days, day-to-day practices and issues and challenges that we see as Muslim community. This is a very great work, and I congratulate all of you for being here tonight, on site or online. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give Shaykh Abu Isa tasdeed and fiqh fi deen, and give him a great reward in the dunya and the akhirah. Allahumma ameen. Also, one of the reasons that I don't want to be here today, it's because I would like you to continue the style, the same method that you used to with Shaykh Abu Isa when he teach. Put a lot of effort, time in preparing every paragraph and making sure that you give everything possible that he can put his hand on in this class, versus someone who just passing by, maybe give a few points here and there. And also the style of teaching could be different, and who can match Isa, mashallah, style. So everybody has his own style of teaching, and I don't want to kind of create a confusion for you. My style of teaching fiqh could be a little bit different than Shaykh Abu Isa's style, and I don't want the students to get confused. There is other reasons, but I have also reasons for me to be here. Number one, that this class is about fiqh, which is not only fiqh, it's fiqh Imam al-Mubajjal al-Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala, the fiqh of Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, which is something I cherish and I dear so much, and that's the madhab that I learned and I followed, madhab al-Imam Ahmad rahimahullah. Not only that, it's also one of the best books ever read or studied or wrote about fiqh al-Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, which is az-Zad. And they said in the old days, man hafidh az-Zad hakama bayna al-ibad. Those who memorize az-Zad, they can judge between people. They literally can rule in every single issue that can happen to Muslim community or people ask about it. And I have a comment. I'm not being متعصب or extreme followers of the Hanbali madhab. I might myself rarely disagree with the Hanbali madhab, but in a certain issue I might not agree with it. But the issue here, that studying a madhab allowed the person to have an answer for the daily issues that we face. It's impossible for anyone to have tahqiq and a study for each and every issue in fiqh. It's beyond your time, beyond your age, beyond your capability. It's very hard. Very few maybe people can do that. I'm not sure if we even have someone like that. Every issue you have to research it and to bring all the evidence and to compare. That's impossible. It takes years. So if you study a fiqh and you master a fiqh, at least you have an answer ready for every issue that you pass by, salah, zakat, and so forth. Then after, as you grow, you start learning and comparing and develop yourself. And no one is better in this than Shaykhna Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala. And that's another reason it made me excited to be here, because this course is talking about the explanation of Shaykh Muhammad al-Salih Uthaymeen rahimahullah on the book Az-Zad. Let me ask you a question. Anyone here knows Zad al-Mustaqni, the original text? It's actually a summary of another book. Anybody knows what that other book is? Al-Mughni. No. If Al-Mughni, it will be like huge book. Mughni is the biggest. But you're very close because...
Something that we said 2 weeks ago, by the way.
Yeah. Yes, sister. Al-Muqni', very good. Okay, inshallah. So, Al-Muqni', which is written by Ibn Qudama, rahimahullah ta'ala. So that's a summary of it. And Shaykh rahimahullah basically explained that text because, as you heard Shaykh saying earlier, it can be very confusing, some of the pronouns and dhamir and what he exactly means by that, and which opinion that he choose from Imam Ahmad rahimahullah. And Imam Ahmad rahimahullah's madhab, one of the reasons I said rarely I choose outside the madhab, because rarely to find any issue unless Imam Ahmad rahimahullah will have a multiple riwayah, not position, multiple riwayah from him about that issue. And usually he cover all the four madhab. That's why I believe you should study Madhab Ahmad, because if you do, you study in studying Madhab Ahmad almost all the other madhab. Anyway, so this is something really made me excited about talking to you tonight. And part that Sh.Waleed said shows for me, it's a quite interesting part, which is about the ruling of Tariq al-Salah. So he read for you the text, which is the original text of Shaykh Ibn Taymiyyah, the Zad, which is وَمَنْ جَحَدَ وُجُوبَهَا كَفَرٍ. Whoever denies the obligation of the prayer is kafir. Let me start with the word jahada. The al-juhud, and this is something you should pay attention to it. Al-juhud fi urf al-salaf khilaf al-mutaakhirin. The word jahada, the use of the word jahada in the early Muslim scholars, among the early ulama, from the successors and the earlier follow of successors, it's a quite different than how the mutaakhirin, the later scholars, later fuqaha, the fuqaha of the madahib used. When you look at the word al-juhud fi kalam al-salaf, in the way the salaf use, usually it refers to one of two. Imma al-jahd bima'na al-takdhib, that you belied, that you deny. Okay, so this is obvious, and that's what what appear from the translation here, that he basically deny the obligation of the salah. He belies. He said, I don't believe that this is true. I don't believe that the salah is wajib. That's kufr, because he basically denied something well established in the Quran and Sunnah. But also sometimes as salaf, they might use the word al-juhud ويعنون به الامتناع المطلق. Sometimes they use the word jahada and it means he refused to do something. So he commit juhud by just refusing it. Not because he believes it's lie, because he doesn't want to submit himself to it. He doesn't want to obey. He believes it's true. He believes it's wajib. But you know what? I'm not willing to submit. Like the kufr of Iblis, for example. Iblis, he doesn't believe that Allah is lying, or he doesn't believe the order to make sujood was not true or not right, but he doesn't feel to submit himself to the will of Allah. And this is so essential because كثير من المتأخرين, so many of the later fuqaha, Muslim jurists, من أتباع المذاهب المتبوعة كما يقول شيخ الإسلام ابن تيمية رحمه الله said, among the follower of the four madahib, influenced heavily by the Maturidi and the Ash'ari beliefs. And the Maturidi and Ash'ari beliefs, the way they define Tawheed and Iman, it's quite different than the way Salaf defined Iman and Tawheed. For them, Al-Iman and Tawheed, it is basically, Al-Iman is a tasdeeq, to believe this is absolutely true. And the opposite of Tawheed, which is kufr, to deny what is, it's not true. So belie, at-takdeeb. So you say, no, it's lie, it's not true, I deny. But, and that's also related to the issue of amal al-qalb, the heart's action. That's why for them the kufr, the opposite, because it's a coin has two faces. So if that's how you see the iman, the opposite will be the kufr is to be lied to not believe it's the truth. But the Salaf believe that the iman is bigger than just the believing it's truth. It's believing it's truth and to submit yourself to it, part of it, which is include the actions. That's why for them the kufr is not just the deed to say it's not true or to deny it. The kufr also for them it is by not submitting yourself to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but not by not doing this action. So that's why they will use the word juhud, referring to those who refuse to submit themselves to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, when he discussed the issue of Tariq al-Salah, the one who doesn't follow the Salah, he said you have to pay attention that not every quote that you find among the later fuqaha, from the Maliki, the Shafi'i, the Hanafi, even among Ashabina, among the Hanabila, is necessarily coming from a fiqh perspective as much as it is based on their aqidah understanding of the concept of kufr and iman. So you have to look to why they said that, why they took this position, because we have a bigger issue here to discuss. So here we say, من جحد وجوبها, what it seems to be, that he's talking about the deny which someone refuse or belie that believe it's not true that as-salah wajiba. He said he became kafir. And to be honest with you, that's obvious, isn't it? Like Ahmad rahimahullah was asked once, maybe the ahadith that speak about those who don't pray is kafir because he doesn't believe it's wajib. He said, what's benefit from this? This is kind of redundant. You didn't need the Prophet ﷺ to tell you, or Allah to tell you, or any scholar to tell you, by the way, if you don't believe it's wajib, it's kufr. He said, there's no point. Because if someone, he was asked rahimahullah about fasting, if someone deny the wujub or about al-qatl, istahalla al-qatl, it's kufr. He said, that's very obvious, known. Because if someone don't believe as-salah is wajib, and he pray 5 times a day, he's kafir. That's right. Somebody believes as-salah is must and wajib. Somebody believes as-salah is not must, is not wajib. It is optional. It's not in the deen of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But he prays 5 times a day. And ulama said he is kafir. It's like someone believes he doesn't drink alcohol, but he or she, never drink alcohol. They never drink alcohol, but they believe it's halal. Once I was traveling in the airplane, and I had a lady next to me. I found out she's Muslim, and she told me, they serve, wine, whatever. She didn't take it. She said, no, thank you. Then she looked at me and she said, oh, not because I believe it's haram. I said, oh my God. She tried to be smart. That's the dumbest things that we can ever say. I said to myself, she's just trying to show off. She said, not because I believe it's haram. I said, you just ruined it. She said, why? I said, you know what? If you just kept quiet, وَيْحَ قُرَيْشْ لَوْ سَكَتُوا. The Prophet said, what's wrong with people of Quraysh? But just keep quiet, things will be safe. So when she told me that, I had the conversation. She was surprised. I said, in Islam, just you believing al-khamr is halal, and drink khamr like drinking this water, that's kufr. A'udhu billah. But if you drink alcohol, and you know it's a sin, and you know it's wrong, and one day inshallah I will fix myself, that's a sin. So that's a completely different story here. Anyway, he said, وَمَنْ جَحَدَ وُجُوبَهَا كَفَرٍ. Shaykh Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala said that al-ulama agreed, and that's absolutely true. Al-ulama rahimahullah, there is no debate between them, that whoever deny the obligatory of the 5 daily prayers, and that include Friday, is kafir. Not necessarily to deny all the 5 prayers, only one of them. If somebody deny Fajr, or not somebody deny Dhuhr or Asr. Like for example, Musaylamah al-Kadhab, when he married Sajah, which is another false prophet, he said that the mahar of Sajah was to drop Salat al-Fajr and al-Isha. No need for Fajr or Isha. Khalas, we just make it basically discounted. Because, subhanAllah, it's the heaviest things for the munafiqeen. That's why he cancelled it. That will be absolutely kufr. So denying one of them or all of them will become kufr, as well as Jumu'ah. Why? Because he basically deny and reject something so clearly stated in the Quran and Sunnah. There are overwhelming evidence, clear evidence in the Quran and Sunnah. But if you look at other books of fiqh, if you look even through the other madhab, today we're just looking quickly, you will find some of the madhab have يعني أسبق عبارة, يعني a word, they add a condition which is very important. And Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah added it, which is, it's kufr if you deny the obligatory of the 5 daily prayers, and some ulama put condition like, as long as this person is not ignorant, he doesn't deny it out of ignorance. Like for example, a new Muslim, who just completely new Muslim, doesn't know that al-Salah is wajib. He just knows Salah is a good thing, but I didn't know that's obligatory. I didn't know that I have to pray the 5 times. I thought it's like whatever I can. So if it's out of ignorance, he is or she is excused. But if the person is a Muslim, knows, taught, and he studied the religion and understand the religion, and he still believes it's not wajib, and he doesn't have a reason for him to deny this, no doubt that this is a kufr. Then Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah made very good point. He said, وهذا, this shows you أن الجهل عذر في المسائل القطعية كما أنه عذر في المسائل الظنية. That this shows you that we excuse people, the ignorance, it's a valid excuse when it comes to the issue that are well established in Sharia, or issues not necessarily well established in Sharia, which is some people refer to as al-qat'iyyat, or ma'lum min ad-din bil-dhurr, well known, well established in Sharia. I personally always have reservation about this terminology, well established in Sharia, because this is relevant. There is no standard really for it. If we, me and you, try to count what are the things that are well established in Sharia, ma'lum min ad-din bil-dharura, everyone should be know. That can be different from somebody live in Bradford versus Manchester, okay, or Manchester and Bradford versus someone live in the Amazon versus someone live in Mecca. Someone study Tawheed in their elementary and middle school and high school. Someone lived in a community that's surrounded with, for example, certain sects and groups. So here we cannot say that it's the same. Maybe there is commonality, 1, 2, 3, but I don't think we can agree on a whole list of things. So Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah is saying, so even things that are well established in Sharia, very obvious, people can be excused for being ignorant of it. And that's a very important point, because al-udhr bil-jahl, it is absolutely a reason for you to excuse somebody from being kafir, just basically because he or she is ignorant. They didn't know the ruling of it. Then in the book Zad said after that, وَكَذَا تَارِكُهَا تَهَاوُنًا. He want to go to another category, which is those who leave the salah out of tahawun, يعني being careless about the salah. He did not mention kasalan, which is being lazy in the actual book, but this understood because almost everybody speak about this topic. He talk about those who are being lazy to pray, or they don't care. If I give you an example, don't care like what? Like someone knows that the ishraq of Fajr, the sunrise, the Fajr time end at, what time ends here? 7 o'clock. Let's say 6:50. And you know what? I'm going to put the clock at, you guys don't pray for it? Maybe you guys pray on time. That's why you didn't know the end of the time. You know the beginning of the time. Good. MashaAllah. I give you a husn al-dhann. Okay. So let's say 6:50, the Fajr time end. So he put his clock at 9 o'clock. Intentionally. He said, it's okay, don't really care. Or kasal. You know, he wakes up and, you know, he knows the salah is the time's gonna, he's just lazy. He said, let it go. She said, who cares? I'm so tired to go. I'm so tired to pray. I'll pray later. You know, maybe when I go home, maybe before I sleep, I will do the fast. That's what Kessel, being just lazy to pray. Oh my God, I'm going to make wudu in that cold weather and I'm still going to pray. It's so lazy to do that. So that's basically being lazy or careless. He said, so if he does that, the mu'allif, the author of the book, rahimahullah, considered this also an act of kufr. But he did not put that as the only condition. He actually, rahimahullah ta'ala, put multiple conditions for the person to be considered kafir. So number one, that he does this out of laziness or being, he doesn't care, careless. Number two, he said, or the imam or his substitute. Substitute like what? Like the judge or the police officer in the Muslim state, you know, call him, hey, pray. So basically the one who represents the imam, the substitute, should call him back to the prayer, ask him to go to pray. And this person insists not to pray. So here he put a condition. So he doesn't become kafir until someone asks him to pray and he rejects. And he doesn't become kafir until all these happen. So he doesn't have a valid excuse, because being lazy or careless, that's not a valid excuse. Number two, that a person of authority asks him to pray and he insists not to pray. And the next one, he said, وَضَاقَ وَقْتُ الثَّانِيَةِ. What that means? It means that basically he lists a prayer until the next one time, almost done. Almost done. So let's say the Fajr example. So he will not pray Fajr, Dhuhr comes, and almost Asr time. But in the Hanabila specifically, they always believe that Asr and Dhuhr are merged together. So for them, it's going to be all the way until Maghrib. So if almost Maghrib and he doesn't pray, and he doesn't have time left to make salat, to make up the salat and to pray and to go back to Islam, they said the Maghrib comes, that's it, he's kafir. For them that will be kufr. But by the way, this is not something, as the Shaykh said earlier, is not agreed. Some of them said no, only one salah leaves, and that's Imam Ahmad, one narration from him was asked, he said if one salah out, that's it, he's not Muslim. So if Fajr, sunrise comes, and if Dhuhr comes and he didn't pray, he's not Muslims. And among the people who took that position, Shaykh bin Baz, rahimahullah, he believes that. If someone just missed one salah, that's it. And if you miss Dhuhr until Maghrib, is not Muslim. He left, he became murtad. And if Maghrib comes and he doesn't pray until Fajr, that's murtad. Because for them they see Dhuhr and Asr like one time, and Maghrib and Isha one time, Fajr one time. Okay? So for them that it is. And inside the madhab, other opinion, I will talk about it later on. Here, why he said one of the condition that the imam or the representative of the imam ask him. They said why they put this as a condition. Because you want to make sure that this person not leaving the salah for another reason. For another reason. I have a question for you. Do you see this a smooth text this way? Don't you think here the author have mixed two things together? Okay, let me explain this much better. Maybe if I explain it, it's hard to figure it out, I guess, if you don't have the background. I do believe every time we read this, there is a mix between two things. Between the person's taking the rule of kufr and leaving Islam, and between you judging him as kafir, and that apply the punishment on the person. So the whole imam and representative of the imam and the judge is actually all about applying the punishment. But if you try to separate these two from each other, things become much easier to understand. So you know what? Leave that punishment part on the side, and let's deal with the issue of just the kufr itself. Was he became kafir or not of denying the salah? You will find in the Hanabila said yes, because still we want that imam to give the reminder, to give him that call. But the majority of the Hanabila don't believe in that actually. The majority of the Hanabila said this is irrelevant. This is only part of the process of applying punishment to him. So you don't need someone to tell him that to judge him as a kafir. And because we don't do that with any other issue as well. We don't, every act of kufr, we don't say, oh, you don't become kafir until the imam asks you. Like somebody, for example, he cursed the Prophet ﷺ. Somebody in front of you said Aisha, the Prophet's wife, he cursed Aisha and he accused her of zina. We don't say, hey, he's not kafir until the imam comes and asks him. Nobody say that. So they said, so this is irrelevant. Whoever quoted this, the mix between question was given to Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, and Imam Ahmad, his answer was based on the punishment of the one who leaving the salah. Then people took that and thought it's a condition. But in reality, if you go back to the root of the madhab, it's not actually a condition that it should be put here. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. The issue of how many faridah you leave and you will be considered kafir, as I said in the Hanabila, different of opinion. The strongest opinion, and Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala also believe in that. That is, if the person leaves the salah completely and he doesn't pray, period. Because An-Nabi sallallahu in the hadith and the evidence showed the one who leave the salah. He didn't say whoever leave a salah. ما قال من ترك صلاة فقد كفر. من ترك الصلاة فقد كفر. Whoever leave الصلاة, that salah. The ism jins. So he didn't say من ترك صلاة. Whoever left a salah became kafir. Never said that. He said those who left the salah became kafir. So the salah, it includes all the salawat. مما أيضا قوى هذا المذهب. One of the things that al-Hanabila used to support that position. حديث رواه الإمام أحمد رحمه الله في مسنده, that the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, a man told him that he will be Muslim and he will only pray 2 salats from the 5 daily prayers. And the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam accepted that. And Imam Ahmad reported this in the Musnad. And Imam Ahmad never commented on this in the Musnad. And Ibn Rajab rahimahullah al-Hanbali and muhaqqiqeen min fuqaha al-Hanabila, also Ibn Taymiyyah mentioned that, and other scholars said the methodology of Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, when you study his way of commenting Muslim Ahmad, if he narrate hadith and he does not have a fiqh opinion that it rejects that hadith, if he has a position that goes against that hadith, he comment on it. But since Imam Ahmad never even comment on it, he said, so that must be Imam Ahmad accept even the fiqh of this hadith as well. And that's why many Hanabila use this as an evidence that leaving one salah will not be considered kufr. But other would say, no, the issue of in this hadith that the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, okay, 2 salah is good enough, he accepted that from him because he wanted him to be graduate and later on he will pick up. But that's problematic, to be honest with you. They said it's a special case. Okay, it's a special permission. That's why you as a Muslim cannot just give permission anywhere. But that's actually any da'wah للتخصيص تفتقر إلى دليل. Anyone claim, just one second, anyone claim that this is a special case, you need a proof. And actually that's not how the Hanbali madhab work. That's very common in the Hanafi madhab, التخصيص. Okay, that's only for the Prophet. That's very common. But if you look at the trend of the Hanabila, it's weird, it's strange for them to say that because that's not how they function as a jurist. Rahimahullah ta'ala. So to claim that this only for the Prophet ﷺ, will say that the Prophet will not approve him to be doing something which is kufr, leaving 3 salah. That's not expected. So that means leaving the 3 salah is not kufr, but it means less iman, and inshallah he will be better. Okay? So that's why the strongest opinion, that those who deny the salat completely. So if someone, or don't pray, completely. But if somebody pray Jumu'ah, pray occasionally, even completely, it's still ambiguous. Like what? Never prayed a single prayer in his life? Or it is a year, it is a week, it is multiple months. How's that? I don't have a clear answer for that, nor you will find anyone can give you a clear answer for that. And I think the reason for this, because it is not something tangible, and it's not expected. That's why Shaykhana Shaykh Abdul Karim al-Khudayr Hafidahullah, in one of his classes, he mentioned something about بعض فقهاء المالكية. Then later on I found Zayn al-Din Iraqi rahimahullah mentioned that actually in طرح التثريب, which is something very interesting. So one of the فقهاء المالكية said, ويقول بعض الفقهاء, some of the fuqaha said, if someone leave the salat completely, تهاونا وكسلا, يعني he doesn't pray out of being out laziness, or he's careless or she's careless, قال وهذه مسألة افتراضية لا يمكن وقوعها في الواقع. He thought that's impossible in reality to be exist. It's impossible to imagine in his time, in his culture, the people around him, it's not even imaginable someone don't pray at all. He said that's only kuffar do that. Muslim, they pray. That's why Ibn al-Mubarak rahimahullah, when he was asked, someone don't pray, but he doesn't believe it is not what he believes it's wajib, but he doesn't pray at all. He said, at all? He said, yes, قال هذا أكثر من حمار أهله. He said, that's worse than the himar, worse than the donkey, of the kuffar. It's not imaginable for them that a Muslim will live Islam and not pray at all. But unfortunately, we live in a time, and alhamdulillah, they didn't see it, but we see it, that we can see Muslim never pray. In my community in Houston, a man, a brother, one of my students, his father passed away. So, subhanAllah, it happened, Allah put me in that test. I was in the masjid, and they brought his father in the janazah. And in the janazah, it is what? Very tense. Every emotion is very high. So they brought the janazah. I know before about this man that he told me about his father. His father never prayed. Actually, his father never prayed in his life. No Eid, no Jumu'ah, not a single prayer. Okay? So, and his father was cancer patient, and his father a doctor, and he knows he's going to die in several months. So I asked the guy, because they brought the janazah, I was the imam, it's not my masjid even. He asked me, we're going to pray on him. And all his families, the uncles and people, looks like, I think this is the first time his father entered the masjid. I seriously think that way. The first time ever his father entered the masjid in that box. Allah, it's so he told me, I said, I'm not going to pray on him. I would never pray on him. And he said, Shaykh. I said, Shaykh, no Shaykh, I'm not praying on him. He knows, I cannot imagine that this is just somebody who's being lazy. Somebody sick and knows he's going to die, and he not praying? I would never pray on somebody. But I want to show you something. I did not object for him to pray on his father. I did not object for this community to pray on his. I didn't even announce my position. I said, no, nobody pray on him. I don't do that. Because I know there is a difference of opinion. And that difference should be respected. And you know what? The khilaf between al-ulama, rahimahumullah, is the beautiful mercy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought to this ummah. So if he cannot be accommodated by my opinion, he can be accommodated by other people's opinion. And I said, it's okay, you can take care of your father. For me, I'm not going to pray. His uncle pick a fight with me. His uncle, mashallah, bigger than this door. Okay? He is ha'matun azima, shay, mashallah, kabir. Okay? And he's like, oh, and I was like, we got very tense. I said, yeah, Habibi, you go pray on him. He called, this guy told me later, he said, Shaykh, I just want to tell you something. My uncle, the one who just fought with you, he's also like my dad, doctor, blah blah. He said we better start praying so the Imam will pray on us when we die. His uncle said that to him. We should start praying because if this is the case, nobody gonna pray us when we die. Yeah, and it was, and I meant it more of ta'deeb actually for the family who came that. Anyway, so here going back to the point that someone like this never prayed, never put his head down. Ya akhi, this is not how the Muslimin are. You cannot. This is how the kuffar are described in the Quran. That لا يركعون, you tell them pray, they don't pray. And that's why in the akhirah, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered them to make sujood, those will never be able to make sujood as well. Because in the dunya they've been asked to make sujood and they never did. They never did the sujood. We're going to talk about the evidence in a little bit. Yes, sir. It is authentic. Hadith of Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, it is authentic. So here, al-ulama rahimahumullah have a very famous debate over the one who leave the salah out of laziness or out of neglect and being careless. Is he kafir or not? It's ironic to know this, that all of them agree that the person who don't pray should be killed. There is no, they have different opinion how. Like the Shafi'i, the Maliki, the Hanbali, they said he'd be killed like the way the criminal and punished, capital punishment. You have Abu Hanifa and Thawri said locked up to death. Life sentence in jail. Until he prayed. If he prayed, we let set him free. So that's the difference. That's very serious. That's why Shaykh al-Razaq Afifi rahimahullah used to say something very profound in his classes. He used to tell us, هل يرتضي عاقل, would ever a person has a common sense, just a little bit of wisdom, to put himself or herself in a position where the fuqaha debate, should be he killed haddan wala riddatan, should he be killed as a kafir or should be killed as a criminal? Would you ever put yourself in a position like that? He said if somebody has a common sense would never put his position in a situation like this. But again, the issue of applying the punishment, they talk about their society, talk about their community. And I think today I was talking to Shaykh Ba'is about this words, this language for us in a civil society today, where we have a law applied by, there's a system for applying the punishment and stuff like that, quite different than the past. When we think about it, we look at it, we say, what's this? This is like, isn't that too harsh? Isn't that do this? I think this harsh language that exists among the fuqaha, I think because it is almost impossible to exist. I think that it is just, it's not exist. That's why historically we don't have record of anyone was killed and executed because he doesn't pray. Shaykh al-Islam bin Taymiyyah put it this way, and let me tell you, this man is genius. That's why يعني في الإنصاف المرداوي and others they agree 100% on that. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah said it this way. He said, all the fuqaha, regardless they believe he's Muslim or not, you bring the person who don't pray, and the ruler will tell him, pray or you will be killed. And he said, I'm not going to pray. Ibn Taymiyyah said, can anybody after this say he doesn't pray because he's mutakassil, because he is lazy, or because he is, careless? He doesn't care. Is that making any sense to you? So Ibn Taymiyyah said, if this is the case, if you tell him you will be or you'll be locked up for life, he said, I would rather to be locked up for life, to be beaten up, to be killed, than to pray, because I'm too lazy to do it. Doesn't make any sense, Ibn Taymiyyah said. So that shows you that him denying to pray is not anymore being lazy. it is really in his heart, he rejecting it. He doesn't want to submit himself. It's the arrogance that Iblis had. And if we say that, there is no need for all this debate, Ibn Taymiyyah said. Because none of the Hanabila said, you just go, he's kafir, just kill him. Nobody said that. And that shows you also one of the differences of what we hear today in some of these extreme sects who claim that they have a state, blah, 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 like in Iraq and Syria. So you find someone who's not praying, apply to Had. No, it doesn't work this way. Because if you ask him to pray and he pray, khalas, you back off. It's not like, oh, I caught you. As if we're looking forward to as if we're looking forward to kill people. No, actually, we're trying to save the life of people if there's any reason for us to do that. Anyway, so here, Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala he's the leading figure when it comes to those who believe in that leaving the salah out of laziness is kufr. But to be honest, not Imam Ahmad rahimahullah. It's actually the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. And I can tell you this with full confidence, willing to debate this until Fajr. Okay? That this is the opinion of all the companions of Muhammad ﷺ that we are aware of. And I think that's the biggest argument that this camp have. That the other camp who say is not kafir failed to produce a single text, a single narration, even fabricated one. I'm willing to take. Okay? That say that a single companion ever believed that leaving the salah out of laziness is considered kufr. While you have over 16 companions been reported, they stated that this is kufr. Then you have other companions and other successors saying that this is the position of the companions. Then you have a large number of scholars from Ahlul Hadith and from the Fuqaha saying that this is the position of the companions. I'll say that one more time. So you have about 16 companions or so mentioned that leaving the salah is a kufr, is an act of kufr that take the person out of Islam. And you have people who narrate that this is the position of the companions, and this among the companions, among the successors. Then you have also on the top of that many scholars who narrated that ijma', that consensus. While the other camp really could not come up with a single companion or a single main tabi'i even who said that. The only tabi'i that they came of the other group, which is az-Zuhri rahimahullah, and as you might, some of you know, az-Zuhri يعتبر من صغار التابعين وليس من كبار التابعين. Az-Zuhri is a young tabi'i, but all the elders among the tabi'ins, what we are aware of is completely the opposite. That they believe that leaving the salah out of laziness and being neglecting the salah is an act of kufr. Imam Shaykh Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah said there is evidence for that, and he mentioned several evidence. He didn't expand because this is something you can read in your own in any simple search. But he gave the example of قول الله تعالى in Surah التوبة فإن تابوا وأقاموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة وآتوا الزكاة فإخوانكم في الدين. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in Surah At-Tawbah verse 11 that if they repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they establish the salah, they give the zakah, they are your brothers in Islam. They are your brothers in Islam. Then Allah here Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah said, so they became your brothers in religion, in deen, with three conditions. Number one, that they repent from the kufr. They go back to Tawheed. Two, they start the salah. Three, they give the zakat. Shaykh Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah said, as you guys might heard Shaykh Isa before telling you, conditions are of two levels. Shurut صحة wa shurut kamal. a condition that it is a condition for the validity of the contract or the act of worship, or it could be a condition for making this act of worship or this contract perfect. So these three conditions, what's the issue here is faith. You became a believer, you became my brother in Islam, if you fulfill these conditions. Are these conditions conditions to make this Islam and this brotherhood valid or perfect and complete? طيب. First one is Tawheed. What do you think? A condition of validity. Without it, it's invalid brotherhood, an invalid belief without Tawheed. To as-Salat. He said the rule, the basic rules, that any condition, it's a condition for validity until you bring a proof otherwise. So he said we keep it the way it is. So it is also a condition like the first one. The third one, az-zakat. So it means if I don't give zakat, I'm not a Muslim. That some scholars said that, but not agreed upon. There is a debate among the companions. And that's very interesting. As-Salah, you will not find a statement from the companions. But you will find different statements about zakah, about hajj, about Ramadan. Some companions believe leaving Ramadan is kufr, like Ibn Mas'ud. But you will find other companions disagree with him. You'll find companions said leaving hajj is kufr, like Umar. Other companions wouldn't agree with that. You'll find in zakat the same thing. But in salah, you will never find the two opinions exist among the Sahaba. And that's a very interesting point to be noticed when you research this issue. So he said, as for the zakat, we don't believe this condition is a condition of validity. Why? It is condition of showing that this is a perfect brother. Because as zakat, denying it or not giving it is not kufr. Not giving it is not kufr. Why? Because the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said in Sahih Muslim that anyone Allah give him gold and silver and he does not give the zakat of it, in the end of the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, فَإِنَّهُ يُرَى سَبِيلُهُ فَإِمَّا إِلَى الْجَنَّةِ وَإِمَّا إِلَى النَّارِ. Such person who never gives zakat, in the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after he been punished, will be see either he will go to Jannah or go to paradise. If he's a kafir, he cannot go to Jannah. If he's murtad, if he left Islam, he cannot go to Jannah. So that means that even without giving the zakah, there is have a chance to go to Jannah. So that means leaving the zakat is not kufr. So he said that's why we made exception to az-zakat. Then he mentioned, rahimahullah ta'ala, several other evidence from the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But they have other evidence from the Quran as well. What time is supposed to end? Now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. He mentioned, just for the sake of time, I'm not going to be able to go over all the evidence, but I will go with what Shaykh rahimahullah focus on. He said, from the sunnah, the Prophet ﷺ said, and all this hadith in Muslims, بين الرجل وبين الشرك ترك الصلاة. What's between a person to become mushrik or to fall in the shirk and the kufr is leaving a salah. العهد الذي بيننا وبينهم الصلاة من تركها فقد كفر. Basically, the covenant between us and you is as-salah. If you leave as-salah, you become kafir. And look at the Prophet ﷺ's statement. You became kafir. فقد كفر. يعني كفر هو. You became kafir. This is completely different than the Prophet ﷺ said, قتال المسلم سباب المسلم فسوق وقتاله كفر. I want you to tell me what's the difference. The Prophet ﷺ said, cursing a Muslim is fisq, but fighting a Muslim is kufr. Is an act of kufr. It's an act of disbelief. That's one hadith. Okay? The hadith that I mentioned earlier, the Prophet ﷺ said, if you leave the salah, you became a kafir. You became a disbeliever. Do you know what's the difference? Yes.
A person can still do an act of kufr whilst remaining within the fold of Islam. This is saying that
the disbelief in the hadith about fighting, a description to what? Describing what? Tasif mada. Describing the person or the act of the person? The act of the person. While the first one describing the person as a kafir. That's why we have al-kufr two level. Kufr amali, kufr which is action. That's why the fighting one another, it's an act of kufr, but not necessarily makes the person kafir. But in Nabi Sallallahu when he talked about the salah, he didn't refer to the act as kufr. He referred to the person as a kafir. ولذلك Ayyub al-Sukhtiyani, one of the greatest tabi'een among Ahl al-Sham, he said, and also Al-Hasan al-Basri said that, rahimahullah ta'ala, rahimahullah ta'ala jami'an, and he's the greatest tabi'i among the scholar of Iraq. Okay, they both said something very interesting when they asked about leaving the salah. What kind of kufr is this? He said, هو الشرك الذي يكفر به. They said that statement. That's why Al-Khallal rahimahullah mentioned it, and the Fuqaha al-Hanabila used this to say that they said it is the act of shirk that make you kafir. So that's a very explicit way of saying that's a major kufr, leaving the salah. And then he said, as for the Sahaba, it is so many, been reported from 16 companions. And if you want to look at these narrations, you will find a good number of them mentioned in a book like At-Targhib wa-Tarhib by Al-Mundhiri rahimahullah. You will find Ibn Abdul Barr mention a good amount of them. Then you will find also Al-Marwazi rahimahullah in his book Ta'zimu Qadr al-Salat, and you will find a good amount of them in Al-Mughni li Ibn Qudama. You will find Ibn Abdul Barr fi Tamheed mention a good number of them as well, and that will add up for you. I'm not sure if I have time to go over it, but Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anh, his statement is one of the most common one, reported by Imam Malik in Muwatta and others, بإسناد صحيح, in a authentic isnad, that he said, لا حظ في الإسلام لمن ترك الصلاة. There is no chance for someone to claim Islam and he or she don't pray. No chance for someone to claim prayer if he or she don't pray. When did he say that? He said that right before he died. Because after he was stabbed, he basically wake him up, he fainted. Then he said, did the Muslim pray? Then he said, they do. They did, alhamdulillah. And he said, he said, alhamdulillah, then he said, because there is no chance for someone to be Muslim if they miss the prayer. The prayer means something so great for them. And if the only thing we can go home tonight with is really to honor the salah, is to know and to respect this so much, it will be good for me. Ali ibn Abi Talib said, those who don't pray are kafir. Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anh said, those who don't pray, they have no deen. فَلَا دِينَ لَهُ. Also, Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh said, whoever don't pray is a disbeliever. Jabir radiallahu anh, and this is also important. Why? Because Jabir is the one who narrated the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, if you leave the salah, you are kafir. So he narrated this hadith. وَالرَّاوِي أَعْلَمْ بِمَا رَوَى. The narrator have a good understanding of the narration of his. Mujahid ibn Jabr, he asked Jabir. He said, Jabir, tell me, what kind of kufr is this you consider? Then he said, and Jabir referred to the companions, they consider leaving the salah is an act of kufr. They consider leaving the salah is an act of kufr. He said, he was asked, ما كان يفرق بين الكفر والإيمان عندكم من الأعمال في عهد رسول الله قال الصلاة. What is the actions that differentiate between kufr and iman? The action that if you do it, you're mu'min, you don't do it, you're kafir. He said, as-salah. That's very interesting. Also, Abu Darda radiallahu anh said, there is no iman for those who have no salah. And I can go on and on. But what I would like to mention here before I end, two things. One of them is quite long, but I will try to make it as short as I can. Number one is this the position of the Hanabila only? As a matter of fact, it's not quite true. This is also one narration from Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala. And Imam al-Muzani rahimahullah, And just for you to know, Al-Muzani huwa Nasir madhab al-Shafi'i. He is the one who really defended madhab al-Shafi'i and the most important person in madhab al-Shafi'i rahimahullah, and you consider one of the most important founder of this madhab, him and al-Bayhaqi rahimahullah ta'ala. And Al-Muzani mentioned that that's what a Shafi'i position is. Add to this his nephew, Al-Imam al-Tahawi rahimahullah, who is Hanafi but originally was Shafi'i. Okay, he originally was Shafi'i, then he switched to the Hanafi madhab rahimahullah ta'ala for many reasons, not because necessarily he believed it's the best madhab. It is incredible madhab, the Hanafi, but he has his reason. It's an interesting thing to study. He is a great scholar of understanding these two madhab. He mentioned that a Shafi'i's position is the one who don't pray out of laziness, kufr. And he did not mention other riwayah and Shafi'i rahimahullah. The one who narrated that the Shafi'i rahimahullah said, there is something in the it's debatable how you can understand it. It can be this way or that way, but I have no doubt that muhaqqiq al-madhab a'lam al-nasi bil-madhab. The scholar of the madhab are the most knowledgeable people of the madhab. And look, that's why you look at the Shafi'i scholars, muhaqqiqeen al-Shafi'iyya, like in Nawawi rahimahullah, and so many long lists, they believe that the strongest opinion among Shafi'i, that he doesn't believe that leaving it out of laziness is act of kufr. Even Malik, there is not a single narration that Malik said leaving the salah is not kufr. There is narration from the Malikis, but not Malik himself. As a matter of fact, there is even people suggest that Malik's position is the opposite. And al-Tahawi mentioned narration, and Imam al-Tahawi mentioned narration from Malik that he believed leaving it out of laziness is kufr. And there is narration suggests that Malik rahimahullah said that. And if you look at al-Qayrawani, Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani, and also Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani, he's considered also one of the greatest scholars among the Maliki. See, if I look to the Shafi'i, the Maliki, the Hanbali, there is three collectors of the madhab. Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani, al-Khallal, Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, and al-Muzani. Those three great scholars because they are the one who documented the opinion of the Imam more than anybody else, in my opinion. Okay? Anyway, so Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani mentioned in his books many positions from some of the Maliki that believe leaving the salah tahawunan, kasalan, out of laziness is an act of kufr as well. طيب. The other point that I want to end with is a narration that consider actually the most important piece of evidence that we have in regard to this, which is a narration. Before I go to this, in Madhab al-Hanabila, somebody suggested that Imam Ahmad rahimahullah has another narration saying that leaving the salah out of laziness is not kufr. I want to say that I don't believe that this narration is authentic. I don't believe that. And there is many reasons for me to say that, because we have to differentiate, and not me, there is many ulama among al-Hanabila said that, we have to differentiate in the madhab between the fatwa of the imam that came to deal with a specific scenario and the opinion of the imam. And I think that's what the case here, right? So Ibn Battah rahimahullah is the one who really support that idea that Imam Ahmad rahimahullah believe in that. Otherwise, if you look to the al-Khallal and others, they never mentioned that as a position of Imam Ahmad rahimahullah. The narration that I want to end my talk with, which is the narration of Shaqiq ibn Abdullah al-Bulakhi, that he said, rahimahullah ta'ala, كان أصحاب رسول الله, the Prophet's companion, used not to consider anything from the deeds. Leaving it is a kufr except salah. Leaving the salah is kufr. So that's consensus from the scholars. This narration by Tirmidhi rahimahullah, there happened to be a debate over the authenticity of it. Number one, some ulama said it is not authentic. Why? They said because this been reported by a man, his name is Bishr ibn al-Mufaddil from al-Jurayri, and he is al-Jurayri. In the end of his life, he became mukhallid, yani mixed things, not very trustworthy. And they said Bishr, most likely he heard this narration from him after he became old. This claim, there is no proof for it. First of all. Number two, we look at al-Bukhari rahimahullah and Muslim, they themselves narrated for Bishr ibn al-Faddal that he narrated from al-Jurayri. Okay? In Sahih al-Bukhari, in Sahih Muslim. He has one narration in Bukhari, one narration in Muslim. But he narrated this with other mutabi', with other narrator like Abdul A'la and other narrators who are very trustworthy from al-Jurayri. And that action from Bukhari shows you أن بشر روى ما روى غيره. Bishr have narrated what other people narrated. And this, if you study Mathiril al-Bukhari rahimahullah Muslim, that actually shows that he trusts the narration of Bishr through al-Jurayri. So to claim that this is weak, that's not right. Number two, this been narrated from other tariq completely in al-Khallal. Number three, what Shaykh said is said by other tabi'een. It's not the only thing Shaykh said. You have Al-Hasan said the same. You have Ayyub said the same. You have Jabir ibn Abdullah, who's a companion, said the same. So this is from the hadith perspective, and I don't want to make it too long in the technical definition. They said also Shaykh, how can Shaykh said there is a consensus among the companions, and he never met all the companions? يعني Imam al-Fasawi rahimahullah, he mentioned a narration that Ali ibn Abi al-Madini was asked, how many companions Shaykh met? He said, did he met Abdullah ibn Umar? He said, no, he only met Abu Hurairah and someone else, I forgot now. He met two companions. First of all, Ali ibn Abi al-Madini didn't deny that he met others. Okay? He only mentioned two. So, number two, Shaykh ibn Abdullah al-Bulaghi, he did not say, I met all the companions and they told me this. He is narrating the ijma' an al-Sahaba, not from the Sahaba. He's not narrating it from each companions. He's saying that the companions say. It's like when Nawawi rahimahullah said there is ijma' among the Shafi'i. It doesn't mean he met every Shafi'i scholars personally and collected his opinion. That doesn't make any sense. So that argument is not a very good argument from those who objected to it. Also, they said, how come that you say there is ijma' consensus among the ulama, the Sahaba, and there is this huge debate between the fuqaha? If it's clear cut like that, and the companion no different opinion, why we have different opinion among the scholars? Why the Hanafi, the Sufyan al-Thawri, these are great scholars of hadith too. Why, they were ignorant of that? The answer for this, there's so many points to answer this, but one of the answer for it is to say, simply is this. First of all, الحجة بالإجماع المتقدم لا الخلاف المتأخر. Always the rule goes, the earlier ijma' is the dalil, not the different of opinion came later. Otherwise, every khilaf comes later on is going to negate the ijma' that happened and will establish before. The whole concept of ijma' will fall apart. What's the point? Every time there is a debate, you say, oh, this opinion is rejected because it's against the ijma'. If we're going to open the door, no, because there is different opinion happened later on. So the ijma' that happened earlier is not valid. That's not valid. So this is not a very good argument as well. If you say, it never heard that ever in Islam, there is someone who was taken and killed and treated as a kafir and nobody pray on him and blah, blah, blah. We said, first of all, there's no proof for that. Many narration I found in a quick research, Imam Ahmad and others said his wife is not valid, the marriage is invalid because he's not praying and things from that nature. Otherwise, we say it's almost impossible to exist, especially in that society, to find a person who you can prove that he is not praying. Because if the Imam tell him, they're not serious. If you don't pray, okay, I'll pray. Khalas. Done deal. He's not kafir anymore. Okay, so to say that does not exist is not right. And by the way, like I lived in Saudi Arabia, for example, we never heard ever somebody was captured and like today was brother was asking me, so in Saudi Arabia, do the guy ask, oh, you're not praying Maghrib in the street? No, nobody does that. It is always the case, something called da'wah. Somebody have to initiate the claim. So go to the court and file. This place doesn't pray. So the judge bring him, do you don't pray? No, I pray. Okay, خلاص, done deal. It goes. As simple as that. It's not like something that we look and check, did you pray? And you have to go online and say, I prayed. It's not like that. The last thing I want to say, there is a very famous debate between Shafi'i and Ahmad. Also they said that Imam Shafi'i debated Imam Ahmad. This whole debate story is fabricated, has no proof for it. Even the language of it is very weak. The hujjah, I will even feel that Imam Shafi'i is much smarter than using this evidence against Imam Ahmad. Because if anyone make an act of riddah, the way to go back to Islam is not to say La ilaha illallah, is to basically fix that act of riddah. So if he didn't pray, by praying he'll go back to Islam, not by shahada or anything like that. Somebody said zakat is not wajib, but make riddah, but he said no, it's wajib, he go back to Islam. That's how he go back to Islam. Even if he say a million times La ilaha illallah and he did not retract that statement of his zakat is not wajib, he's not Muslim. So the beg to go back to Islam is to basically to make a statement to negate the act of kufr that you did in the past. Anyway, this is just some of the points. Sorry for keeping you late, but there is many other pages. I will leave it for your Shaykh and scholar to go over it. How is Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah classify the evidence of the other camp who said the act of leaving the salah tahawunan is not kufr. He categorized to 5 categories. And Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah is a very artist. Subhanallah alim. He's very interesting how he put things together. He's like Ibn al-Qayyim. I'll tell you something about debate. If you want to destroy someone in debate, okay, make their opinion so big, so fancy. The balloon when you blow it, so big. Anything touch it, blow it. But if the balloon is like, it's not there's not much air in it, it takes time to pop it. But if it's so big like that, anything can pop it. And I think that's what he's setting them up. 5 categories. He make them sounds like so organized. Then he destroy them one after another. So it make it easier for you. And Ibn al-Qayyim used this sometimes. And they did with 20 dalil. Then he destroyed them one after another. So that's a very interesting style of destroying the other opinion that you don't agree with. That's an art of debate. Anyway, inshallah, this is enough. I'm sorry to keep you guys late. But al-fiqh, you never get bored with it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala infa'na bima 'allamana. And I hope that the last thing, just as I said earlier, the thing that really I want to go with, that we should honor the salah more. And respect the salah so much and take this very serious. Salah is amudul deen, amudul Islam. It's the main pillar of Islam. Even those who said it's not kufr, leaving it out of laziness, they still consider this the worst sin you can ever meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with. This is something we should put it in our heart, in our kids and children, our family, our community, and talk about the importance of the salah. Sallallahu wasallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad. Jazakumullahu khairan. I'm very happy to be in Manchester with you, and inshallah hopefully to be back soon, inshallah, in January 2nd, and I will be not far away from here, inshallah, in Bradford. We have a Ilm Fest, and also in the 3rd, I think, in Birmingham, we have also Ilm Fest there, the Maghrib Institute. I ask Allah to give us all tawfiq. Wa sallallahu sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad. I will leave all the questions for Shaykh Abu Isa later on, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.